Greetings. It is our honor and pleasure to work with you in this way at this time. We would suggest, first of all, that you take a moment to breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. And we are grateful for this opportunity to work with you. And we will work with you this evening for a specific purpose. You have been exposed to the highest creative force, and you have given yourselves permission to merge with and feel the power and grace of this creative source, this creative light. And this is a an extremely potent tool in your spiritual toolbox for living your vision. Now, an equally important tool in your toolbox for living your vision is letting go and letting your master self, your soul self, your eternal self, lead the way. This master self, this soul self, this eternal self is the part of you that is, of course, at one with the creative force, the creative source. And your task this evening and going forward is allowing it to lead. You allow this part of you to lead by directing the healing light of grace to any part of you that is tempted to create from the perspective of the ego's lack. The key is to heal the misguided perspective that would cause your ego to feel in lack. So you do not create from the perspective of lack, for that is less productive. So, as the channel is fond of saying, your living vision is not of the unmet needs of the ego, but is your vision without ego. And so healing ego and creating from the highest self is an integral part of this. So we would work with you tonight to follow the guidance of your soul, your eternal self, by healing and thus diminishing the voice of the ego so it does not misdirect the creative energy, and so that your highest self or your soul may ultimately most efficiently direct the creative energy. So we would begin by suggesting that you breathe. Just breathe. And as you breathe, just relax and breathe. Just breathe and relax. And understand that your wounded ego self has been a catalyst for your growth and healing. And as it has triggered you into the healing that you receive now, it is completing its task, and it can, in human terms, hand over the reins to your highest self, that your God self might direct the process of your creation. So breathe. Just breathe. Just breathe. And as we work with you through this process, instead of asking the question, what would my wounded ego self create to cause me to feel happy and fulfilled? You would then ask instead, what does my highest self allow that would enhance the happiness and fulfillment my highest self deserves? So breathe. Just breathe. And understand that creating from this shifted, expanded perspective is much easier, much more effortless, for your highest self is already so fully aligned with the creative force and the creative source that it hasn't the struggles of the wounded ego self. Just breathe. Just breathe. And as you breathe, just understand that the wounded ego self might have created a broad set of desires for its happiness, and they shall be fulfilled. But as your wounded ego self has created these parameters for your happiness, your highest self carries them out. So your human ego self can hand over the assignment to your highest self. Just breathe. Just breathe. And as you breathe, just feel the comfort and grace of God. Just breathe. Just breathe. Just allow yourself to feel the comfort and grace of God. Just breathe. Just breathe. And as you breathe, work with the thought form, God, I am your beloved child. I am open to your comfort and grace. Just breathe. Just breathe. God, I am your beloved child. I am open to your comfort and grace. Just breathe. Just breathe. And feel the deeply penetrating, deeply healing love and acceptance of God's grace. Just breathe. Just breathe. And feel the deeply healing, deeply comforting, loving acceptance of God's grace. Just breathe. Just breathe. And feel the deeply healing, deeply comforting, unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace. Just breathe. Just breathe. And as you feel yourself being surrounded by, healed by, and filled with the loving acceptance and comfort of God's grace, you can open to this. I am open right here and now. I am open right now to the deeply comforting, healing, loving acceptance of God's grace. any part of me that has been wounded or has felt separate from God's love is now healed. Just breathe that in. Just breathe that in. I am now filled with and healed by the loving acceptance of God's grace. Any and every part of me that has been wounded is healed now. Just breathe. Just breathe this in. I am surrounded by and comforted by the loving, healing acceptance of God's grace. Any part of me that has been wounded is healed now. Just breathe. Just breathe. I am surrounded by, filled by, and healed by the loving acceptance of God's grace. And any part of me that has been wounded is healed right now. Just breathe this in. And feel the healing comfort of the unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace. And feel the healing comfort of the unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace. And feel the healing comfort of the unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace. Feel it now flowing into your crown chakra. Feel it now flowing into your third eye. And breathe. And breathe it into your throat chakra and your heart chakra, and feel your heart opening to receive more fully the unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace to heal your heart. And breathe. And feel your solar plexus, your emotional center, the seat of your emotional body, receiving the divine healing of the unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace, healing your wounded psyche, heart, and energy. Feel the unconditional loving acceptance of God's grace, comforting your wounds, any wounds that you carry are comforted and embraced by God's healing grace right now. Just breathe this in. Thank you, God, for the miracle of your grace that heals my emotional wounds right now. Thank you, God, for the power and glory of your healing grace that heals any emotional wounds I have experienced right now. God, I surrender to your unconditional loving grace any emotional wounds I have carried right now. God, there is no reason for me to carry emotional wounds when you would lift them from me. So I surrender them right now. Just breathe this in and allow the energy of God's grace to take over as you surrender. As you surrender from the perspective of your wounded ego, the grace of God takes over. And this grace flows into your sacral area and your root, offering a deep healing to all of you, every part of you, every aspect of you, everything you are, everything you've been, everything you've done and experienced is now healed by the unconditional loving grace of God. Thank you, God, for healing these wounds, that I might surrender the creative process of my good to my highest self. Just breathe this in. And feel this grace working on layers of your consciousness and energy, known to you and unknown to you. And just breathe this in. And now we would move to the second phase of this process.